on page 9, which just simply deals with answering some questions about a vending machine. And the first one says, when a student pushes button number 3 on machine B, what is the output? Oh, very good. Okay, if a student received a Sprite from machine A, what was the input? Everybody. All right, 2. Number 3, so what represents the input of the vending machine? The buttons, okay. And then the output would be what? All right, the type of soda, okay. Number 5, one of the machines would not make a very good one. Which one is that and why? Machine C, can someone raise your hand and tell me why? Yes. Right, you have a 50% chance of getting this or that. Okay, so it's not the best one to get if you definitely want a particular type of soda. All right, number 6, 2 of the machines above fit the definition of a function, which is our whole lesson today. So which 2 machines can be considered functions? That should be A and B, because for every input, there's exactly one output. And that is definitely, and that's really the definition of a function. Okay, for every input, there should only be exactly one output. All right, let's move on to the next page. And like I said before, a lot of this unit, most of this unit deals with vocabulary. Okay, we'll get into some computations later. But we got to actually build our vocabulary first. So if you go to the next page, the first word at the top says relation. A relation is a set of ordered pairs. And I think I had you guys write this down on page 1, that relation is another word for ordered pair. Okay, so you know how we have nicknames sometimes, you know, James usually is Jimmy. Okay, for a nickname. So now we're going to have some nicknames for some other things. Here we go. So here would be an example of just some regular ordered pairs. So, you know, you put your X and Y, you put a comma, 4 or 5, you put a comma. Okay, those are what we call relations. So instead of saying plot the ordered pairs, I could simply say plot the relation. And you have to know that relation is an ordered pair. Okay, nickname for domain will be or X, because usually we say X. So a nickname for the X is now called domain. Okay, that is what we're going to be calling our X coordinates, our X values in the relation. Okay, we're going to call it domains. So if I'm looking at these 2 sets of ordered pairs I have here, or this relation, the X values would just be the 2 and the 4, and you just use the little set brackets to put them in. Okay, 2, 4, use the set brackets. Nickname for Y is called range. So again, looking at the first relation I have here, your ranges would be 3 and 5. Make sure you're writing this down because this is going to be on your quiz. Okay, so if I say list the ranges, then you know I'm talking about the Y values. If I say list the domains, you know I'm referring to the X's. Okay, so again, building that vocabulary. Okay, so now we get down to function. The formal definition: a special relation in which each member of the domain, which are our X's, is paired with exactly one member of the range, which are our Y's. All right, so down at the bottom, you'll see it says all the following functions determine the range and domain of the relations. Okay, so we're going to first look at the table. So this particular table, when you're determining whether or not it's a function, only look at the X values or the domains. Only look at domains. Okay, there's no reason to look at the ranges, right? And guys, and I know I probably will say that again, when you're trying to determine whether or not it's a function, you only look at the domains. You do not look at the ranges. Okay, that's going to be very important. So what should happen to the domains? They should all be different. Okay, so you want all the X values to be different. Move this over. So the X value should, and I'm just going to say not repeat. You don't want the X's repeating at all. So I'm looking at these X's. I have -1, 1, 3, 5, and 7. They are not repeating. Like I don't have another -1 or I don't have another 1 and so on. So yes, this is a function. Okay, that is a function. Then it says to list the domains and ranges. All right. So when you're listing the domains and ranges, you do want to put them in numerical order. So I'll write that down as well once we list them. So you're going to put the little set brackets, and then you'll just list them. And actually, this table happens to be in numerical order. And you'll have to do the same thing for your quiz. Okay, so if I say list the domains, you'll just list them in numerical order. And then same thing for the ranges. Looks like they're already in numerical order. And we're not going to write the 4 again. So here I want you to put list in numerical order. All these little notes are important. And do not repeat the numbers. Okay, so if there's 2 1s, you're only going to write that one time. Okay, so all of those little notes are important. Okay. All right, let's take a look at table number 2. So in table number 2, I'm trying to first determine whether or not it's a function. It looks like the 2's are repeating. So this answer would be no. That is not a function. Okay, because remember, you don't even look at the X's, only the Y. So I'm ready to list the domains. So I'm going to start with -1, 0, 2, and 4. Okay, for the ranges, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. All right, looking at question number 3. Again, I'm going to look at my X's. So would this be a function or not? No, because you see the 3's repeating here and here. So it's almost like having that soda machine that's going to give you 2 different outputs. It gives you a 4, it gives you a -6. It's not a function. Okay, so my domains, I'm just going to put D for domains. 3, 5, and 7. And for the ranges, -6, 4, 7, and 10. Okay. So again, you can see there's no computation. It's all vocabulary, just knowing which one is D, which one is R, and determining whether or not it's a function. Okay. All right, we're going to move to the next page. So this is where you're going to practice exactly what we just did. So you're going to just list the domains and ranges. Then you're going to plot the points. For these, you do not need to connect. So I'm going to say do not connect. Same thing on the quiz. You're just going to plot them. You're not going to connect them. Okay. All right, so I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll come back and do the second part. You can finish up when I'm done. Here are the answers, and all I did was just go through and list the domain and ranges. I did not plot them. I did state whether or not it was a function, so this first one should be a function. The second one should be a function, so I would say yes. And then the third one is a no, because you have a -2 going to 2 different outputs. Okay, so that's a no. Just make sure, you have them listed in numerical order. Any questions? All right, we're going to go to the next page. So let's just say you don't have a list of relations, you just have a graph. So how do you tell whether or not it's a function based on? All right, so in question number 4, this is called the vertical line test. And it says, how else can we determine whether a relation is a function? If you place a pencil, and I just, really draw some vertical lines on the left side of the graph and move it along the right, if the graph only hits the pencil once or the line once the entire time, then it is a function. So that's why we call it the vertical line test. So if you draw vertical lines through this graph, you can tell it's only going to touch at one point, okay, along this entire line. So yes, this is a function, and it means that all the x's are different. Okay, so it still follows the same rule that the x's are not repeating, right? Here, I draw a vertical line, but when I get closer to the end, it's touching the vertical line in 2 places. So no, that's not a function. Okay, so it can only touch the line once. Parabolas, please put this note here for a parabola. Remember, I told you parabolas are that U-shaped curve that go up and down are functions. Okay, so the x's are not repeating if you do the vertical line test for parabolas that go up and down. They are functions. Okay, actually we call them quadratic functions. Okay, now you can see this parabola is turned sideways. This will be a no. It's not a function because you can see in the vertical line test it's going to touch that vertical line at 2 points. Okay, so that's a good visual for you. And I'll give you something like that on the quiz. I'll give you some type of diagram and say, is this a function or not? Okay, now let's go to the next page. Okay, which is also a good review for your quiz. So it says, here's a table, and you guys need to know this is called mapping. Okay, this diagram here, I want you to put the word mapping because you're going to actually make one on your quiz, and we're going to make one together. This is called mapping, of course, and then obviously this is a graph. So what they've done is they just want you to see you can have a table and you can list the ordered pairs. They're very easy to pair up when it's in a table because they're already paired together. So I've already done that. You might want to go ahead and write that down. 2, 8, -4, 7, 0, 12, and 9, 5. They're very easy to see because they're already paired up in the table together. In a mapping, it's not hard to see. You just follow the arrow. 3 pairs up with -14. 1 pairs up with 0. -10 will pair up with -14. So same thing, write them as coordinates. Okay. And then for a graph, you just have to read the coordinates yourself. Okay, so I just read the coordinates and I wrote them down. Okay. And you'll have to do the same thing on the quiz. All right. So at the bottom, we're going to actually take a relation, a set of points that they're going to give us, and we're going to create a table, which is what you'll have to do with a set of points. You'll have to create a mapping, and you'll have to create a graph. So let's do that down here. So this is like question number 1 on the quiz. Display the following ordered pairs or relation in a table, in a mapping, and on a graph. Table is easy. We're just going to go ahead and list them. 5, -3. 1, 0. 2, 3. 1, 4. Okay. Title again, I'm going to put this so you can get familiar with what this is called. This is called mapping. I'm not going to do anything on the quiz except for tell you to give me a mapping of the relation. You are not going to see these ovals. You have to make them yourself. Okay, so you'll have to make the ovals. You'll have to put the X above one and the Y above the other. So I'm not going to already have that set for you. I'm just going to say this is the section you need to show me the mapping for that particular problem. So please put in here, do not repeat the numbers. Do not repeat the numbers. Okay, write this down because all of these little notes, guys, I will take off if you don't pay attention to them on the quiz. So I'm writing it down for a reason, because these are things students tend to leave out. Okay, so you don't want to repeat any numbers in your mapping. So you basically just pretty much like a table, just start with the number that's there. So like 5, and you draw an arrow to show that it pairs up with -3. And 1, draw an arrow, it shows that it pairs up with 0. 2 pairs up with 3. But I'm not going to write this 1 again on the left side, because I already have 1. Here it is right here. So 1 pairs up with 4. So again, see, I didn't write the 1 down here. Okay, so 1 pairs up with 4 should go there. You don't repeat. Again, you're not repeating numbers. Even if the repeated number was in the Y column, you would not repeat any numbers at all. Okay, so that's why I put that little note there, so you'll remember, do not repeat. Now, you can go ahead and plot it on the graph. I'm not going to do that part, so go ahead and plot those 4 points. So on page 16 is the homework. So this must be done where? Spiral. So please write it at the top of the page. No, I don't want half of it done in the spiral and half of it done on the worksheet. I want all of it done in the spiral. Okay, so the first question is just simply asking you to identify the domain and ranges. And then look, you have to make a mapping diagram. That's exactly what we just finished doing with those ovals. Okay, so you're going to do a mapping diagram and then say yes or no whether or not it's a function. Okay, so you'll list your domains, and look, the first one is easy because what's the domain? It's just 3. All the x's are the same, so you already know that it's not a function, right? Okay, so all the x's are the same, and then you can just put D for domain and then R for ranges and list those. And then you will say, do your mapping. Okay, for number 8, put your X and Y, put your 3 here, put all your numbers here, and have your arrows going to each one. All right, so that's what you're doing for 9 through 11. Now, when you get to number 12, everybody take a look. Use the what test? Vertical line test. We just talked about that. So if you draw a vertical line through each one of these dots, will it only hit the vertical line once? Yes, in this one. What's going to happen when I go over here? It's going to hit 2 dots. So is this a function or not? No, you will say no because the x's are repeating. This is at -1, 1 and -1, -1. Okay, the x's are repeating. It's not a function. Okay? Right, so even the yes and no stuff, guys, everything is in your spiral notebook. Nothing's on the worksheet.